All right, welcome into Sports Bit, Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy, Tuesday, March 8th. We'll get into the deep dive with conference tourneys futures, buy and sell, play of the day, of course, and big game breakdown coming up, two in the NBA and the Horizon League final. Interesting game with Wright State and Wisconsin Green Bay coming up. Teddy, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Paul. How about yourself?
Doing well.
I'm doing well too, man. But let me start today's show because I got a little bit of a rant, and this isn't a big time hardcore rant. There's a story I want to tell, and it goes back 2 years ago when I used to write for ESPN. And look, I was never like an official ESPN employee. I was always a contract writer, and they wanted me to write about college basketball. And I'll tell you what, I did not enjoy writing the ESPN college basketball stories. It was a nightmare, Paul. They would do it like 4 a.m. Pacific time. They always had me working on games. They wanted to picks for the ESPN games. So I had to pick a bunch of games that I didn't necessarily have an opinion on. I remember the first weekend, they wanted picks on 8 games. And of course, I'm putting them out before there are lines available. And then 5 of the 8 games finished within a point of either the opener or the closing number. And then someone's like, okay, what's your record? It's like, I don't know. It depends on what numbers you got. It wasn't a gig that I loved working for ESPN. But when ESPN calls, you answer the phone. They're the big boys. So I'm working for ESPN. There's a good guy, Ben. He was my boss over there. He assigned the articles, and he came out to Las Vegas for the tournament. And I wasn't running good that particular week. And I'll tell you, this is the week, of course, March Madness, the opening week of the tournament, Wisconsin, Oregon, 2014. And the whole point of this story is not about ESPN. It's about this game and the games in general. Because look, I'm sitting there with Ben for ESPN, and I'm not a guy that goes nuts every game, Paul. I'm really not. I'm calm, generally collected, chilling out, watching the game, trying to learn, not letting my emotions rule me during these contests. But the bottom line in this game, I've got Oregon. I've been running bad. A big bet on the Ducks. Big play for the clients on the Ducks. The Ducks are leading by double digits the whole first half. They look in control. Wisconsin makes a run. Games back and forth. I'm +6 with Oregon. And, of course, they fall apart in the final minute. And with 1 second left on the clock, they have one more foul when they're down 5. And there's a technical that goes along with it. And Wisconsin shooting free throws, bing, bing, bing. The Badgers get the win. The Badgers get the cover. And I absolutely lost it, Paula. You see me like this. You ever see me spitting and swearing and all that kind of stuff?
No, I haven't. No.
Never?
Never.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's not pretty.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there in front of Ben Falk, Ben over to ESPN, and I have a meltdown. I'm like, oh, sons of bitches, rah, 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 rah. And you know what? I never wrote another article for ESPN.
No.
Never wrote. And I wasn't upset not to get that gig. I used to be on the Beyond the Bets podcast with Chad Millman.
What did he say? Give a reason?
They just said they're going in a different direction. I'm not convinced that it was my meltdown at the end of the Wisconsin-Oregon game that caused my non-renewal of contract. But the point is this. Everybody in the world is going to lose a bet or 2 or 3 over the next 2 weeks because some guy they never heard of goes nuts and buries 4 3-pointers in the final minute, or because some idiot has fouls, down 11 with 2 seconds left and you're catching 12 and a half. You're going to lose a game like that. Maybe 2, maybe 3. But when we talk about this time of the year, where literally there are games morning, noon, and night for the better part of the next couple of weeks, it's not just about handicapping the players and the games and the teams. You've got to be able to handicap yourself properly because it can be a frenzy that can overwhelm you. Even an experienced bettor can lose it, absolutely lose it, when, of course, we're going to watch more games than we usually watch, and we're going to suffer more tough beats than we usually suffer. Try to take a breath. Try to not let this stuff eat you up, because if it does, it can absolutely turn things south in a hurry, including, potentially, losing your job.
Very good. Good story. All excellent points there. All right. Well done. Bad beats. We always start with bad beats. No bad beats, but let's look at this. 8 1 seeds already have gone down here in the conference tournaments.
And there haven't even been that many conference tournaments yet.
No.
I mean, let's talk about the Horizon League in particular. We're going to deep dive. We're going to do a big game breakdown on the Horizon final tonight. But let's talk about what happened last night. And we talked about this on yesterday's show. Gee, Joe Louis Arena, not a great basketball venue. Tough sightlines. Here are two teams that have played already on this floor twice, facing off against the top two teams in the conference, both off double byes. What happens? Valpo, first game in 8 days, bye-bye. Oakland, first game in 10 days, bye-bye. What do we got? A number 3 and a number 4 seed in the Horizon. The top teams went down. A big edge to already have played at Joe Louis in that tournament.
Maybe they have to go back to that format. They've always had the double byes, but the team used to get the games on the home floor. And now they both go down. And with the layoff, the rest versus rust. Again, what the hell are we doing here? Why are we playing for 2 months? Because these guys it's going to be hard to get at-large bids. And then you see the chaos already as 8 1 seeds have gone down. I can't stand it. I hate it. I think we should get auto bids or at least games on the home floor for these 1 seeds. Drives me nuts.
Well, you know what we need, Paulie? The tournament's just got to be doubled. Instead of 68, let's make it 1.
Oh, yeah, put everybody in.
Yeah, but then you can give an auto bid to everybody. 136 teams, give an auto bid to anyone that wins their league, give an auto bid to anyone that wins their conference, and all you have is 1 extra game. Instead of these playing games Tuesday, Wednesday, why not have another round?
Yeah. One bad bet, and again, this has been crazy. Wrong sides with the upsets. We had the Warriors go down Sunday. How about the Cavs against the JV team? Memphis only had 9 guys. Memphis was 16-1 on the money line at some spots. Cleveland here in Las Vegas at the Westgate, 40-1 favorite, and they lose. We talked about no Gasol. Everyone knows that. Conley was out. No Randolph and no Birdman. They got Tony Allen back. But you see that 9 guys for Memphis, and the Cavs go down, and now Tyronn Lue, since taking over for Blatt, has lost 5 games as a favorite of 7 points or more. Teddy's only coached 21 games.
Yeah, I mean, trick or treat Tony, man. What a night from Tony Allen last night. Mario Chalmers, here's a guy who's been really good in March in years past. He had a heck of a run with the Kansas Jayhawks. Remember him hitting a pretty big shot against Memphis in the title game, although that had to be the first Monday of April. But they take the lead on a Chalmers layup with 25 seconds left. Then Tony Allen ties up LeBron on a drive, and he forced a jump ball, and then he won the jump ball. That's what Tony Allen brings to the table. 26 points, 5 steals, and the defensive play of the game. But, I mean, look at this Grizzlies starting lineup last night. We talk about this all the time. When the opponent doesn't bring their stars, or when the underdog doesn't bring their stars, the favorite relaxes. And I'm sure that's what happened to the Cavs last night. But when you have Mario Chalmers, Tony Allen, JaMychal Green, P.J. Harrison, and Ryan Hollins in your starting lineup against Cleveland, that quintet averages less than 32 points per game, by the way. The Cavs, we got this one in the bag. And, of course, they didn't. But how about this? I guess 2 points I want to make here. One is I want to talk about the Kevin Love for Andrew Wiggins deal. It's already ranking as a disaster for the Cavs. Love, 3 of 15 from the floor in March. 2 of 9 last night with 4 turnovers. And look, he ranks number 16 in the real plus-minus category in the NBA, and that's one of the many reasons why I think that stat is garbage. Other guys in the top 20, Matthew Dellavedova, J.J. Redick, Patty Mills. You're not going to tell me that any of those guys are top 20 players in the NBA at this stage. But, you talked about the fact that Lue has now lost 5 games outright as a favorite of 7 or more. What about that money line parlay last night?
Oh, my God.
With the San Antonio was plus 300. You get a plus 240 take back on the Pacers. A 2-teamer. We're not talking a 10-teamer or an 8-teamer. We're talking a 2-team money line parlay with the Grizzlies and the Pacers last night, 56-1. Those opportunities are out there. Not every day, maybe, but they're out there.
Wow, excellent first segment. Up next, big game breakdown. We'll get to the Wizards and the Blazers, the Hawks and the Jazz, and that Horizon League final as well. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Time for big game breakdown. We start in the NBA. The Wizards take on the Blazers. No early line yet. Beal is doubtful in this one. And after a 6-game roadie, The Blazers are at home. And Teddy, this could be a bit of a distraction because you come back, you have some personal business to take care of, but it's not much time off. I mean, they're right back into this game after 6 games on the road, and they haven't been at home since February 25th.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When you get home from a 2-week trip, how many things are waiting for you at your door? A million of them. You know, you got bills to pay. You've got wives to see. You've got girlfriends to see. You've got kids to hang out with. You have, you know, and when you think about all the off-court commitments these players have, I mean, they have a ton of off-court. They have to go to hospitals and speak to children. And, I mean, there's stuff going on in schools. They really do. They're up against it. And the longer the trip, obviously, the more that comes flying at you as soon as you get home. And, you know, when you talk about a veteran experienced team with a lot of 30-something guys, they've been through this a million times. When you talk about a young team like Portland with a bunch of 20-something guys, you know, those distractions can and do add up. And, of course, when you get home and you have just a single day to get everything done before your next game, you know, this is, of course, a Blazers team that was completely out of gas and really just hanging their heads on defense at the tail end of that road trip, Paul.
Yeah, they were not playing well down the stretch, and a lot of teams were going crazy on them. They were not doing a good job defensively. So we mentioned Beal's doubtful. That means Garrett Temple back into the starting lineup. Since he was back in the lineup, he was 20 of 64. It's really struggling, but maybe broke out of it last game as he was 5 of 7.
Yeah, but we got to talk about this Blazers defense a little bit because, you know, I'm assuming most bettors out there are familiar with the concept of team totals in the NBA. These are now fairly widely available. If you're not familiar, here's the basic concept. Team A is favored by 10 points over Team B, and the total's 200. So Team A's team total would be 105, and Team B's team total would be 95. You're just taking the overall total and the point spread and adjusting for that point spread to get the team totals for the two squads. So that's just a simple example. So here's Portland. Look at the graph. You know, against Toronto, they're supposed to allow 106.5. They give up $117. Against Detroit, their team total at 103. The Blazers allow 123. No line on this game yet. Without Beal, I'm projecting Portland to be in the -5 to -6 range for this one tonight. But don't know if it's going to be the best spot for the Blazers to bounce back strong.
All right, there we got the Hawks and the Jazz. Jazz 1.5 at home. Total of 192. The extended stay in Los Angeles, those couple days off, helped out the Hawks. They were 10.5-point favorites against the Lakers. They won 105-77. 5.5-point dogs against the Clippers. They won 107-97. The defense held those two opponents to 38% on the road trip. And here's the team totals. Check out this graph. When they played Golden State, the team total was 108. They held the Warriors to 97. The Lakers team total was 96, held them to 77. Clippers 103, held them to 97. So after that horrific start to the second half, after the break when they had some ugly home losses, I think the Hawks came together on this road trip in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Warriors game, that was the part in regulation. They gave up one. They predicted to allow 108.5. They gave up 97 in that contrast. But we were talking about Haka and how it never works. Atlanta played some Haka DeAndre in their last time out, and actually worked. They got back into the game and ended up winning. But for all this stuff that we like about the Hawks right now, let's talk about Utah here for a minute. Because you and I were kind of talking, saying the Jazz, they look tired. They look like they've lost it. And they got that win to close out the road trip. It kind of got a little bit of momentum back. But let's talk about the Jazz familiarity with the Atlanta Hawks. Okay, first, they're coached by Quinn Snyder. He was an assistant with the Hawks in Mike Budenholzer's first season in Atlanta. Then, last year, strength and conditioning coach Jeff Watkinson left Atlanta to be an assistant coach in Utah. Excuse me. And now there's even more familiarity for the Jazz against the Hawks because former Hawk Shelvin Mack, of course, Gordon Hayward's teammate at Butler, when Butler went to the national title game in back-to-back years, was Shelvin Mack, who's been the backup point guard in Atlanta. Now he's working his way into the Utah Jazz rotation. So Utah is going to know a lot more about, excuse me again,
drink some tea.
Atlanta than Atlanta will necessarily possibly know about Utah. And we look at this this quote from Quinn Snyder talking about Shelvin Mack. He's saying we have to be patient with him and his ability to make a good transition, but it's a compliment to Coach Budenholzer, his staff, and that team. Shelvin knows how to play, and Snyder knows what the Hawks are trying to do.
All right, it's time for you to have some tea.
I'm about to.
have a big sip. Final game, the Horizon League Final, 4 o'clock Pacific on ESPN. Wright State against Wisconsin Green Bay. Projected line, Pick'em, 147. Now, both teams could be gassed in this one, maybe an under here, as they have to go through their 4th game of this tournament, Teddy.
Yeah, 4 games in basically 4 days for these squads. And look at the minutes. And, of course, of the 2 teams, Wisconsin Green Bay has faced the tougher slate of minutes. Carrington Love, 118 already. Jordan Faust, 104. Charles Cooper, 97 in the first 3 games. And Khalil Small at 91. So you got 4 guys at 90-plus minutes over the last 3 days. Yeah, every one of them likely to be gassed. And, of course, coming off an overtime win, you wonder what's going to be left in the tank for Green Bay. For Wright State, you got JT Yoho, the only guy to play more than 81 minutes for them so far. And one of the best names in college basketball. You just got to say it. Biggie Minnis, man. That's just a cool name. But for Wright State, their depth is greater than that of Green Bay. And, of course, trivia. Here's Wright State trivia for you. Nobody even knows that the school's in Dayton. Why is it called Wright State? Because the Wright brothers were from Dayton, and they got a university named after them, the guys that started flying. So there's your trivia for the day.
Awesome. Up next, deep dive, topic of the day and play of the day. Part 1 of a 2-part series, Conference Tourneys 101 and Conference Tourneys long shots, futures, and teams maybe that are bow out early. That's coming up on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. All right, time for the deep dive and the topic of the day. This is buy, sell, conference tourneys. Today, part 1 is ACC, Pac-12, Mountain West, and Big Ten. Tomorrow will be tournaments that start late Wednesday night. So part 1, buy, sell. Teddy, this is going to be a lot of fun going rapid fire on these 4 conferences.
Yeah, no question. Of course, the key, for the purposes of this discussion, we're only talking about the conference tournament weekend itself. This has nothing to do with what's going to happen next weekend in March Madness. Mm-hmm. We're doing 4 conferences that either start today or early on Wednesday, and we'll save the other 3 that start late on Wednesday for tomorrow. So let's start with the ACC. What do you say?
I say we start with the ACC, and we start with North Carolina. The running joke is you see Roy Williams hit this tee shot. The running joke is Roy likes to be rested, get in, get out, and work on the golf game during conference tournaments as they have an early exit. But in this one, I like North Carolina because, let's be honest, we've watched the struggles of Marcus Page. This guy's a bricklayer. Struggling shooting the basketball, not feeding the big guys. Got the big win at Cameron to beat Duke. But this is a team where they could use the rhythm on offense and get these guards going as they go into the big dance, Teddy.
Yeah, North Carolina needs it. And this is a team that is capable of making a deep NCAA tournament run. And they're capable of winning the ACC tournament. And, of course, the Tar Heels, year after year, the joke is always that Roy Williams is at tea time on Saturday. And if North Carolina wins the first game, you just bet against them the second game. But it's been a pretty steady moneymaker for me over the years. This year, I'm not convinced that that's going to be the case. But if we're buying North Carolina, and of course the Tar Heels have the depth this year, we're going to buy North Carolina. Let's sell a team that doesn't have any depth. That, of course, is the Blue Devils. Not only is a lack of depth make it almost impossible to get through, but Coach K may, in fact, be smart enough to not want his team to get worn down. Remember, they're the defending NCAA tournament champions. Their bigger weekend is next weekend, not this weekend. And the teams with no depth, these 3 games in 3 days, 4 games in 4 days, they run out of gas before the big dance even starts out of any part of Duke this coming week.
Agree with you on that one. Pac-12, let's buy Utah, led by Jakob Poeltl. The big guy's been terrific, and they had a deep tourney run last year. Toughness is there. They lost a tough game to Duke, but they got over the hump and exercised the demons. They finally beat Arizona, and I think that did a lot for their confidence.
It sure did. And if we're going to buy Utah, this team has the type of physical play that it takes to win a tournament. Arizona, I don't know that they do. I'm not sold on Sean Miller's squad this year. They were only good. They were not great. And we think about all the players that Arizona has sent to the NBA in recent seasons. They might not have anybody drafted this year. They lost 5 conference road games. And at this time of the year, Paulie, I could care less what a team did on their home floor. I really could. I'm 99% interested in what have you done on the road or in neutral sites, not who you were capable of beating at home. But if we're selling Arizona and we're buying Utah, what do you think? You want to buy a little bit of Cal too?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What, one loss since February, and that was at Arizona when they outplayed them? Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course, the Arizona game was just Gabe York getting hot in the last minute or two. But, it's a Cal team. They got 2 NBA lottery picks on that squad. And I love the way they bounced back. They responded to that Arizona loss. Some teams, it's the last weekend of the regular season. Yeah, no big deal. They gutted out a tough road win at Arizona State. That's a character victory. Even if they didn't cover the point spread, Cal's a team, I think there's still money to be made with the Bears. Not just this weekend, maybe next weekend and the weekend after too.
Buy-sell continues out here in Las Vegas, the Mountain West. It's the Mountain Worst this year. Horrible league. Buy San Diego State, the 1 seed. They always do well in this tournament. And I like how they responded after the tough loss at home to Boise State. They bounced back by blowing out New Mexico on the road, and they took UNLV behind the woodshed at home as well.
Yeah, of course, if we're buying San Diego State, when we look at the teams that they beat and destroyed, New Mexico, glass chin. UNLV, glass chin. If we're going to sell somebody in this conference, let's sell everybody. Frankly, look at the picture. The other teams have fallen, and we don't think they can get up. This has not been a banner season for the Mountain West. It's San Diego State's by far the class of this conference this year. It's their tournament to lose.
Finally, with the Big Ten, let's buy on Michigan State. Izzo, I think the best coach in the country, always seems to have his team playing their best ball going into March. I will never bet against Izzo in a big game. Plus, Sparty, 10-1, straight up, 11-0 ATS, and that the loss was only by 1 point to Purdue.
Yeah. I honestly think that Michigan State right now is playing the best basketball of any team in the country. And from a future NCAA tournament future standpoint, I'd be interested in the Spartans. Although the years that Tom Izzo has had a national championship contending team, he doesn't always go all out in that Big Ten tournament. That being said, they have the depth, and this team's playing phenomenal basketball right now. Another team that has the depth, that we're looking at these type of situations. You want depth, you want inside-outside balance, and you want desire. How about Tom Crean's Indiana Hoosiers? This win would mean a ton to the program. The depth is there. And even though we talked about how Indiana didn't necessarily play their best basketball away from home, they played a heck of a lot better on the road down the stretch. The Hoosiers, to me, may be very live in this tournament. But one top 25 team that I don't think is, Paulie? That's the Maryland Terrapins. 2-4 straight up, 1-4-1 against the spread down the stretch. And of course, the same concept comes into play here. We're looking at the futures and conference tournament futures. Lack of depth is the number one factor. And Maryland, not a deep team. It's not enough to get through these brackets. And, Melo Trimble, he's already showing fatigue. 27 of 90 from the floor in the last 6 Big Ten games. 9 of 34 from three-point range. It's just too much of a load for this squad. I'm selling the Terps. They didn't play their best ball down the stretch, and I'm not convinced they're going to play their best ball this coming weekend either.
That was part 1. Part 2 tomorrow, Big 12, Big East, and SEC. All right, time for money time. Play of the day.
Let's do it. And let's go to the NBA for Tuesday night. We're going to take a look at San Antonio and Minnesota under the total of 207. Let's take a look at this graphic right here. Spurs, think they're cashing under tickets lately? Yeah. How about this? 7 straight unders. 6 of those unders have cashed by double-digit margins. In fact, all 6 by 14 points or more. They haven't even been close. Spurs are playing championship-level defense, but last night in Indiana, not so much. They almost gave up 100 in that ball game. It was their worst defensive effort in recent weeks. I would expect them to bounce back strong in that regard against a Minnesota team that certainly is not going to impose their will on San Antonio. Let's take a look at the Spurs and T-Wolves under the number. That's the play of the day for Tuesday.
Very good, Teddy. Always a lot of fun. Dynamite info, plenty of numbers. We'll be back Wednesday. We'll see if the madness continues on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.